Welcome, everyone. You know, it's you look around, and these are all Rick's friends, and I mean, can you imagine having this many friends? And I think that was Rick. That was why everybody is here tonight. It's hard to say goodbye to Rick, but for the last hour, and we've come here tonight really to celebrate him and who he was and all his accomplishments. But as difficult as it is, you know, when you talk to people like we have over the last hour, and all the great stories, and the kindness and the generosity and the smile and everything that was about Rick, everybody says, it brings you to heart. It really makes the night a little bit easier. So this is a celebration, as difficult as it is. It's a celebration of a great guy, a guy that was just a marvelous architect. He was a great business partner. He was a selfless servant to this community. And he loved everybody. He believed in everybody. So tonight, we've invited some people to share in those remembrances. So it's a little bit informal, but to help kind of shepherd us, we've asked Barry Banther to help out tonight. I think a lot of you know Barry. Barry's our business consultant at the office. He's our friend, and I know he's a friend to a lot of you out there tonight too. So Barry's going to help us through tonight. So Barry Banther.
And as Mike said, Rick was not perfect, but he was blessed. Blessed by friends like all the people that are here right now. Blessed that he never had to stand and do this for any of us. Blessed that he was able to shepherd his dear, dear bride. And so tonight it is with a sense of loss and a great sense of confidence in what he meant to all of us that we've gathered here. And we have several speakers that are going to speak. They're only going to speak for about 2 minutes each. That's the plan. And from their perspective, they'll be able to share how they feel about Rick. And I know that all of us here have had hundreds of conversations with Rick over the last decade. And every one of our conversations was different. And yet all of those conversations were exactly alike in one thing. At some point, for me, the last time I was with him just a few weeks ago, at the end of the conversation, he would always look at you and then say, "How about you? How are you doing?" And then he would flash that smile that he was so good at. It was not possible to be just his client or for him to be just your client. Somehow it had to happen that you'd become friends. And we're going to hear from some of those friends tonight. And first of all, from our county administrator, Ed Hunzeker.
Good evening. A lot of you have known Rick a lot longer than I have. I came here in 2007, and we met shortly thereafter. I think it was Wayne's Artisan Walk project that got us together. And ever since that, Rick and I would have dinner about once a month. And we talked about vision, we talked about family, our love of the West, the challenges our wives had. But it was always fun. It was just a great evening to spend with Rick. He did so many things for the community. He did so many things for all of us. But at the end of the day, it was always that smile, that warm heart, that feeling that you were with someone you had known all your life. That's Rick. I remember an old Latin saying, I don't remember the Latin part any longer, but I remember the saying, "A man is known by his friends." And given the crowd here tonight, Rick was one hell of a guy. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for being part of this. I want to thank Rick. I want to thank Connie. Great couple. We loved them much. Thank you.
One of Rick's close personal friends is the publisher of the Bradenton Herald, Bob Turner.
So it struck me on the way here tonight. One of the words that describes Rick probably better than anything is colorful. He designed colorful places. He was a colorful person. And you became somehow a little more colorful when you were around Rick. It was enjoyable to be a friend of his. Dottie and I had the pleasure of being Rick's and Connie's friends, and it's something I'll always treasure. I have to read because I had some things I wanted to say, and I hope you'll all bear with me. But you probably won't remember the words that were spoken here today, but you'll always remember remarkable Rick. One of a kind we're not likely to see come our way again. You'll always remember that he made you feel good. You'll always remember that he made everyone special. You'll remember his smile, his cheerful greeting, his enthusiastic personality. All of those things made Rick remarkable. You'll also remember that he had more substance than most. His heart seemed to be a little bit bigger than most, and his actions backed up his words a little bit better than most. We'll remember many sides of Rick: the consummate businessman, the dreamer, the creator, the idea man, the friend, the father, and the husband. You'll remember that he was successful. He was very well respected and connected in the community. People sought out his advice. You'll remember that Rick and his partner Mike Bryant built nearly half of the Manatee County skyline. And every day when you walk through the community or drive through the community, you'll see something that Rick built, and it'll be colorful. You'll remember that he bear-hugged his way through life, embracing every moment, drinking it in like a life-giving potion. He was just that kind of guy, and I think you'll hear that theme repeated throughout. You won't remember the words today, but you'll forget the beautiful flowers, but you'll always remember his charming way, like fresh air after summer showers. You won't remember the words respectfully spoken by friends, but you'll always remember remarkable Rick and his spirit that never ends. Thank you all for the honor of speaking it. Thank you.
Another close friend of Rick's is our city clerk, Carl Callahan.
Thank you all tonight, and it's really certainly an honor to be here and be able to speak in front of you. And for Lynn and Connor, my son, and myself, I just want to let you, Rick was truly a friend, and we cherished his friendship. We were very unlikely friends. I like to call it the hippie and the jock, and I want you guys to figure out which one was which. We soon found out that we had a lot of things in common. We loved the mountains, we loved golf, we loved baseball. We talked the nuances of all of those, but most of all, we loved this town. We met in a cozy little setting over at the auditorium. 1,000 or so of our very closest friends were there to discuss the merits of the City Center project. It was the beginning of a very strong bond. We went on to finish City Center. We finished Pirate City. We finished McKechnie Field. And whenever things would get a little dicey in front of City Council, I'd go to Rick and we'd need a little presentation, and I'd sit there and look at him and say, Rick, go up and say those really nice architecture things. And he would take it from there. We would talk for hours on end how to improve this city, and he always insisted that we get going with it because, you know, we only have 10 good years left. There's lots of people who wanted to make a difference. Rick Fawley is truly a man that made a difference. And for all of us that want to continue what Rick started, the only thing I can say is it's time to quit slacking and make stuff happen. Thanks.
And we all know how proud he was of his relationship with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and here to share some of that is their Senior Director of Operations, Trevor Gooby.
Thanks for having me here. On behalf of the Pirates, we're honored to be here today to remember Rick. I came here 11 years ago. I was a 28-year-old kid that had no idea how to build anything, and Rick Fawley was one of the first people that I met here in Manatee County in Bradenton, and he treated me like I knew what I was talking about when I probably didn't. And we started at Pirate City And we probably built the best spring training facility that you could have. And for the last 11 years, we've been working together. So he's a mentor, he's a friend. I tell a lot of people, you know, he reminded me a lot like my dad. Just an awesome guy. The legacy that Rick Fawley, Bryant, NDC Construction has left here in our community. Every time you go now into McKechnie Field, you'll see Rick smile. And when you walk the boardwalk, that's his idea. And just really cherish our friendship, and just an awesome person. So again, on behalf of the Pirates, thank you for allowing us to work with Rick.
And among his closest personal friends, both a traveling companion, business companion, and confidant, is Mr. Mike Pender.
It's probably the hardest talk I've ever had to do in my life. You know, they say friendship isn't about who you've known the longest. It's about who walks into your life and says, I'm here for you, and proves it. That was Rick Fawley. Rick and I met at my wedding 12 and a half years ago, and it just has turned into an incredible friendship when you know, it's hard for men to have good, close friends and really somebody they bond with, and Rick really did that. And I could tell you stories that would blow my 2 minutes 50 times. But you saw pictures of us in Africa and whiskers attract whiskers, and I grew a beard, and the two of us looked like brothers in there in some of those pictures. And but I really want to tell you, Marie and I are wearing a shirt tonight that says Spirit Wind on it. This was the name that, of this home that Rick built for Connie out in Durango, Colorado. This house was a real passion of love. He arranged this house, he designed this house, he tilted this house, everything, so Connie could stand at the kitchen sink and look at the needles, or you could sit in the back porch and look at the mountains. He did an incredible job because it was a place that he could go to and share with his friends and have peace and get away from, you know, all the struggles, get creative, get rejuvenated, and get back into his work. And so Marie and I were blessed probably for 10 of the last 12 years of spending a week to 10 days with him out there, and it just was an incredible experience. Spirit Wind comes, the way they came up with that name, there's a great big rock at the end of the driveway, and it comes from the fact that there are tall ponderosa pines surrounding this house. And as the wind blows through those pines, it just almost speaks to you when you're sitting out there on the patio. You know, first had a small covered patio, and then he started to build what he called Fawley's Crown Room. Now, Rick loved Crown Royal, and so Marie and I had this sign made up, Fawley's Crown Room, so it became permanent. But when he and I were together, we drank Grey Goose and tonic, so it was a great time. We'd sit there, and this picture shows us sitting together one evening on that patio that he expanded with a fire pit, and he keeps growing this patio, and he was adding more. Even last July when we celebrated Connie's life out there, he was adding more to the patio. You spend most of your time out there because you sit there and you look directly at the La Plata Mountains. In the mornings you get up, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, you have Mexican blankets wrapped around us. We have a cup of coffee, and there's a herd of deer walking right across his front yard. It was an incredible experience. We could sit there and share anything that we wanted to talk about as two men together, and I just incredibly miss that. And this is a part that all of you didn't see, but it was a part that is in my soul, and it was just so incredible. I could go on with a lot of stories, but I'm going to read you a poem that I found because you know, we love spending time out in the West with them, and this is really written
about a cowboy and his horse, but I've rearranged it to be the two of us. It's called Camaraderie. We shared the trail, kicked up some dust, and stood a storm or two. We've rode the plains, the wide frontier, the easy trails were few. You've listened like some wise old sages to everything we've said, and as friends supported each other no matter where it led. I wish I could have carried you the times that you were in pain or rustled up some kind of shed to turn the blowing rain. I've come up shy with some of your needs. You gave me more than you got, but in your silence seemed to know I need you a lot. Compadre, friend, amigo pard, I called you all them things, and there's been times I swear to God you must have had some wings, and sent you to care for me like no one had before. You as my friend, I couldn't have loved you more. I always knew the day would come when you would finally ride to join the Maker roundup time up the Great Divide. I sort of hoped we'd share that trail, but this was not to be. So you go on, we'll ride again, compadre, you and me. I'd like you to do one thing for me. You know, Rick never shook hands. If you'd all turn to your neighbors and just give them a big hug, that's the way Rick greeted you. And that's what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now, as you probably have surmised by now, Rick had an affinity for tall men. And some of us were blessed to be among his friends without that trait. So please, another close personal friend, Mr. Cliff Walters.
Well, we all envied Rick Fawley. I particularly envied his hair. But Rick was a true person of character. He filled a void we didn't know we had. But Rick was also cool. He is the only man I know that could carry a man purse and be cool. He is the only man I know that would tell you that he's the consummate mountain man, the adventurer, the person of the wild, and come to a tent camp out in a 40-foot RV and be cool. Indeed, he's the only man I know that the next morning at the tent camp out could step out of his RV with bunny slippers on and be cool. But Rick's coolness didn't come from his sunglasses or an expensive watch. Rather, it derived from his being the person you wanted to be with. And you wanted to be with him because he was passionate about everything. And he was fully engaged with his family, with his friends, and with his community. Rick was an authentic man. But he also had a spiritual side. And I just thought that it might be something to share with you this evening, that he and Connie wrote their wedding vows. And I'm going to read to you all the last paragraph of the wedding vows that he wrote. Now you will feel no rain, for each of you will be shelter to the other. Now you will feel no cold, for each of you will be warmth to the other. Now you will feel no loneliness, for each of you will be a companion to the other. Now you're two bodies, but there's only one life before you. Go now to your destiny, learn what you're here to learn, teach what you're here to teach, but go into the days of your life as one. And may your days be good and long upon this earth. Well, Rick's days have passed. We are here left without our friend. He was someone that made us all better for having known him, and we will miss him.
anyone on the Fawley Bryant staff could stand and for the rest of the evening recite to us great memories of not just their employer but their friend. But J.B. Taylor had worked with Rick perhaps the longest since as a very, very young student. He comes now to share his thoughts with us. J.B.
Well, in true Fawley fashion, I had actually summarized a 30-page speech, which I will sum up with one word: impossible. It was the one word that was not in Rick's dictionary. I'm going to take you back a little bit. 14-year-old, pimply-faced, scared, skinny, yes, skinny little kid meets this dynamic redhead with an earring, which he got back, and was telling me about architecture school and everything else. I looked at him, and here I am, 14. No way. Rick's favorite saying was, "I'd rather be lucky than good." And let me tell you, I was lucky and good, because I was lucky to meet him. Because of that, I became a good architect. Many years later, he was at my high school graduation, junior college, Ringling, and then finally USF. And then 3 months later, I was at my wedding. He has been to every good thing, and he was the first phone call I made when my mom passed away. He was another father to me. But go back to impossible. He never let me stop short of my dream. I was always keep moving, keep going. There's always something else there. You look around you, and there's a lot of impossibility around here. My biggest example of that is 9 stories, brick clad, and about 2 blocks that way. I could point at about 5 or 6 people in here that remembers that conversation when that suddenly became a reality. And let me tell you, that was 5 days of hell for me, because the conversation started out with, "This might be crazed, but..." And if you ever heard that, you knew something genius, something insane, but something great was going to happen. He loved this community. He loved everything about it. We moved downtown back in 1993 and did everything we could. And it used to be that the bar was, if you came down here on a Wednesday night and found a parking space, we weren't doing our good job. Well, that happened. So then the bar got raised. And I said, "Rick, since we get a sushi bar downtown, we've made it." Well, that got taken care of, so we're on to the bigger and better. So, but remember this, that the incredible always happened every day. You look around and see incredible every single day. But the impossible, that took a really, really, really long weekend. I want everybody to do one thing for me. But raise your glass. To Rick. You're here. Thank you very much.
We're very honored tonight to have some of Rick's family with us. And I know that this is a bittersweet moment. And I hope that you, among all of us, will capture this in your mind's eye. And as the days and the weeks and the months and the years pass, you'll remember just how much affection this community and these friends had for your brother and for your father. And so now we'll hear from someone who was the light of Rick's eye, his son, Zack. Zack.
Hi, everybody. I'm my father's son, so I'm completely unprepared, and I'm going to talk for twice as long as I'm supposed to. When they asked me to speak, it was to share stories about my dad and how I feel that related to his life. So I'll share one with you. When I was 5 years old, we had built this home in Vermont, this massive 3,500 square foot, ridiculous, huge home, which was complete. We had poured blood, sweat, and tears into it. We had a wall at the end of the house that ran the 3-story duration, and it was all drywall. We had had it built and taken down 12 times because the seams didn't match, because sounds like him, right? It wasn't perfect. And at the end of it, sitting on the couch, looking at the TV for the night, waiting for that moment where we could all go to bed and rest that the house was done, my father walks out to the garage, picks up a sledgehammer, and knocks a hole in the wall. To which my mother, who I'm sorry to say couldn't be here today, says, "What the hell are you doing?" And he says, "Well, now I have to fix it." And when I think about my dad, he didn't pass. He didn't die. He had something else to go fix. It was too done. It was too perfect. When I hear words like legacy and community, it's not buildings. It's not huge, insane, mind-blowing projects that start with a simple question. What do you mean there's only a library on the waterfront? His legacy is you. And it's built on ideas that my father believed in his very core. We stand together, fall apart. All of us are smarter than some of us. And what he's built here is you. You are the community. You are the ones that he was after. He was after people that were interested. He was after people who wanted to look at our downtown for just an example and say, "Why is it only old people?" That was a question he asked me a lot. And I look at what's here now and how vastly different than it was when I was a kid. And really all that existed here was a library and a restaurant, as good as it is. There needed to be more. And he got more. He got you involved. He got you moving. And that's what I'm going to ask of you. I'm going to ask of you to keep calm and Fawley on. To remember that 30 years ago, my dad came here and he was the long-haired, red-headed hippie with the earring. That the establishment at the time hated him. They thought he was just the asshole that showed up to tell them that they were all wrong. And remember that when the next one shows up, that it does take careful time and attention, but sometimes we have to listen because you're the establishment. You're the community. You're who's going to carry his legacy forward. And I thank you very much for that. Thank you.
And now Rick's sister, Jackie Welch. Jackie.
Good evening. As my brother would say, this doesn't suck. This is just overwhelming, and I can't thank everyone enough for what they've done to honor Rick. As his sister, I've known him all his life, definitely longer than most of you have, or any of you have. Back in the time when people got to come, when women gave birth, they stayed in the hospital for a week and they came home in the ambulance. And I got to come home with Rick and hold him in the ambulance. And since then, he has been my best friend. And as you will, I miss him terribly. I know I'm going to miss him terribly. Rick always wanted to be an architect. From the time he was this high, he was sitting there drawing out plans, and you'd look at him and you'd say, "What is that?" And he would just look at you and say, "You have to believe." And I remember when, after he got out of school, and he was working in Georgia, he came up north. I was living in Vermont, and he came up and did the rounds to get a job, and nothing panned out. So he went back home, And a few weeks later, I opened the paper in the morning, and it said Burley Associates had won the contract for the Bailey Library at the University of Vermont. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I get on the phone, and Rick's in the shower, and I said, okay, here's what's happening. You gotta, call Burley. And he did. He came up and he got a job, and I like to say that I'm responsible for his career. But, I am hearing so many stories from people that knew a side of Rick that I really didn't know. I mean, I knew about the different projects that he and Mike had and his involvement in the community, but I really didn't fully appreciate the impact that he had on Bradenton. And as Zack said, I really hope you carry it forward. Thank you so much.
And Goodwill obviously was close to his heart, and as many of you already know, that's going to be a place where we're going to be able to continue to honor him. So with us is the president of Goodwill Industries Manasota, Bob Rosinsky.
Break it, fix it, build it, dream it, vision it, think about it, go forward. All those things were Rick. And I really believe that one of the reasons that Goodwill was so special to him is because it was a reflection of everything that he believed in. I met Rick when he came on our board of directors after meeting Don Roberts. Don and Peg send their regards, couldn't be here today, but we're close friends of Rick and Connie. And Rick put his heart and his soul into everything that happened at Goodwill. As Zack said, our job is to carry on. And Mike came over last week, and we talked about how can we ensure that Rick's vision and his dreams and his commitment to a better community can go on. So tonight, I want to tell you that we are beginning a Rick and Connie Memorial Scholarship Program that will benefit employees of Goodwill to further their education so that, as Rick so much wanted for everybody else in this community, that they can have a better life through trying and engaging and moving forward and not taking anything for granted. So, Goodwill is a dream that Rick had for years and years. When you come to our corporate campus, the pictures in here, we get to see Rick every day. We get to see his vision, we get to see his ideas, and we get to see what truly mattered to him, which is, let's do just a little bit better every day. Thank you.
And of course, we will all go home with great memories and wonderful thoughts of Rick. And even those who knew him the closest, the tyranny of the urgent will take over and life will continue. But for his partner for 20 years, that office will always be different. And I think it's most appropriate that he sum up our comments tonight, Mike Bryant. Mike.
I had the pleasure of knowing Rick for 30 years and being his partner for 22. You don't replace somebody like Rick. You live his legacy. I tried to think about, what are the superlatives that kind of define who Rick is, and those things that we can take away with us as a part of him. And there's passion, You know, Rick had a passion for everything. I mean, just anything that grabbed the heart of his soul, that he just took on with it. And with that was a compassion also. He loved people. He loved helping people. He did it in a lot of different ways. He was an optimist. He would walk into the office every morning, even during Connie's illness, and have a smile on his face and say good morning. I mean, that means the world to people when you're working every day and knowing what he was going through. But he had that smile. You know, some of the other things, he was irreverent, we all know. He was colorblind, which kind of explains a couple things. He hated convention. You know, and rules, he just hated them. They didn't apply to Rick. You know, they applied to other people. And that's why he could accomplish so much. That's why he just loved to stir it up, stick his spoon in the pot, and keep turning it until something came out that he thought was right. And he honestly believed that he could change the world, at least the world in this area of Manatee County and Sarasota. He honestly believed that. And most importantly, he believed in other people too. He really believed, you know, that it was an effort by everyone, and he believed in everybody. I was going through his desk the other day, and I found an EDC little notebook. And I don't know what it was from, Sharon, but he was taking some notes. And I think this really kind of tells you who he is, because this is what he wrote. Anyone can be creative. Innovation is the only way to achieve consistent sustainability. Exceed your vision. How can creativity overcome fear and risk? And not taking a risk is taking a risk. So that's kind of Rick. That's kind of who he was. And I have to say that as a partner, I couldn't have asked for anybody more. You know, he and I were pretty different people. But we had two things that were key to our success. It was the mutual respect, and it was trust. And we never violated either. And I think that's what made us such a great team, and something that I've learned over these years. You know, we had in the office what we called a nuclear option. And when any time one of the partners didn't agree on something, I mean, they were just adamantly against it, we just didn't do it. We just respected the partner's opinion enough that we just wouldn't do it. And we never violated that. We never did the nuclear option, as we called it. Rick had a big vision for the company. And you know, over the couple years that he had to care for Connie, we talked about transition, and we talked about this time. Of course, we don't want it to come this quickly, but we talked about it. And the company will go on. We'll take away all we've learned from Rick, the legacy and all the great things that he was. We'll take that with us, and we'll continue on. When I spoke to Bob and Veronica at Goodwill last week, trying to identify something that was really Rick and Connie, they came up with this marvelous idea. And you know how much Rick was involved in education. And Goodwill, and tell me if I'm telling the numbers right, Bob, Goodwill employs over 800 people. 40% of those do not have a high school diploma. So there's an urgent need out there to educate people. And Goodwill's mantra, which is to give a hands up rather than hand out, this really seemed appropriate. So all of us at Fawley Bryant, I'm pleased to announce that Fawley Bryant will pledge $50,000 towards the Rick and Connie Fund. And we would ask you all to join us. I think as a friend, that's what most impressed me about Rick. For 2.5 years, he took care of Connie. And he couldn't make it into the office very much. I think Rick, he never left her side. He never left her side. He took her to the best clinics. He spent whatever money it took. And he helped her through her life's end journey with dignity. And I remember one night we went to hospice, and Connie was transferring out of bed, and Rick was helping her, and he started to dance with her. And it was just the greatest thing in the world to see. He made that journey for Connie so much easier. So the most that I take away from Rick is that he taught us how to love people. I'll miss Rick's friendship, as you all will. And we'll carry on. I want to thank everybody for being here. Barry's going to close. I know I speak for everybody when we offer our most heartfelt condolences to his family. Barry.
Thank you, Mike. So how do we sum up an evening like this? It might have been best done by the ancient writer of Proverbs who wrote these words: "Do not withhold good from those to whom it's due, if it's in your power to do it." He made good to the people he met in this community. He did good toward this community, toward his clients, toward his family, toward his wife. He was an example of choosing to do good. It was a choice that he made. It would be a tragedy if this was his memorial. In fact, I can almost hear him speaking about how much this would be tragic. The choices that we make in the days to come, can we choose to do good to those to whom it's due? Even those that are in the shadows of life, as well as those that are in the sunrise and the sunset of life. The mystery, I think, is not that someone so capable, still with so much to do, still somewhat in his prime, was taken from us. The real mystery might be how someone like Rick Fawley ever lived among us to start with. We were truly, truly blessed by his presence. If you'd like to pray, thank you. If you'd like to pray or just have a moment of meditation or a quiet moment, I invite you to join me in these final words. Dear God, we thank you for Rick Fawley, for his life, for his influence, for his kindness, for his creativity, for his friendship. Thank you for his smile. God, in the days to come, encourage us to do likewise. In your name I pray, amen. We want to thank the South Florida Museum, Bernine and all the volunteer staff, Marie and all of the volunteers who helped make this possible, the team at Fawley, Bryant, Pier 22, Charlie Clapsaddle and the team at METV have been providing this for the family. It's very important that we do one last thing in his honor. There's still food and there's still drinks. And we're going to be showing the slides in the planetarium. Please don't miss that. So make your way back inside. Enjoy this evening. Thank you for being here.